Good to be with you. I'm Tony DeCopel. The breaking news right now. Deadly winter storm. At least 19 people killed, hundreds of thousands without power after a record-setting weekend of heavy snow and ice. Rob Marciano has the new warnings tonight about dangerous cold and if another storm is on the way. Also breaking tonight, Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bavino relieved of his duties in Minneapolis after a second deadly shooting by a federal agent on Saturday. Matt Gutman is on the ground in Minneapolis. Ed O'Keefe on what the president is now saying. And scientists unveil a crawling robot hand a la Thing from the Addams Family. Can it find your keys? And Louisville unhinged. What happened during the storm that has the police department saying sorry, not sorry? Yeah!
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel.
And it's great to be with you on a very busy Monday night. The death toll rising in the aftermath of that massive winter storm over the weekend. And there are also new concerns tonight about dangerous temperatures that have more than 180 million Americans under alert. Much of the country, meanwhile, digging out after record-setting snow, nearly 2 feet burying parts of the north. And to the south, destructive ice is the problem. Hundreds of thousands are still without power. And nationwide, airlines are working to get back on schedule after thousands of delays and cancellations as another storm beckons. We'll have a full forecast in just a moment, plus more on the travel situation. But we begin with Tom Hansen in hard-hit Boston. Tom, good evening to you.
Hey there, Tony. Good evening to you. Well, the snow is still coming down, but the worst is reportedly over for now. So far, we've received about 19 inches, but with temperatures hovering around 18 degrees and a wind chill that makes it feel like it's about 6 degrees, this snow is not going anywhere, meaning all of those massive piles we've been seeing around the city are here to stay.
The work week opened up with a winter wallop. Driving snow followed by a blast of below freezing temperatures is responsible for at least 19 deaths across the country. More snow is in the forecast for parts of New England tonight, where some communities have already seen nearly 2 feet. At Boston Common, we found the snow piled shoulder high and the people working to clear a path through it.
It keeps me warm. I don't need a coat on because it's tough work trying to shovel all the snow.
The work is keeping you warm.
The work is keeping me warm, yeah.
New York City ferries are navigating past large ice floes covering the Hudson River, while further north, Coast Guard boats were called in to free a barge frozen in place near Barrytown.
And this storm brought one of Boston's top 10 biggest snow days ever. Cold weather advisories and extreme cold warnings are also in effect tonight from North Dakota to Florida. And Nicole Valdez is in Nashville, Tennessee.
Here in Tennessee, 250,000 people are still enduring frigid temperatures without power, more than any other state. In Nashville and throughout the South, power lines and tree limbs are caked in heavy ice. The University of Mississippi has canceled classes for the week because of damage from the ice storm. We've met several people who've been trapped in their homes for days, unable to navigate the icy roads. How cold is it in your house right now?
It's 45 degrees.
What are you guys doing to try to stay warm and safe at this point?
Lots of blankets. We have a ceramic pot and a candle underneath it to try to slightly stay warm. That's pretty much all we have, so.
About 6 inches of snow fell in parts of Tennessee, but it's the extreme cold that's causing real problems. Nashville's mayor is calling for patience as crews work to get the power back on.
We are seeing trees continue to fall. Even as crews are getting power restored, limbs and trees are falling on lines again in places, knocking power back out after it's been restored.
Tonight, we'll have a wind chill of -11 degrees. This Arctic cold is also causing problems at many airports. Chris Van Cleve is at Reagan National.
Still plenty of cancellations and most flights are delayed, but planes are moving again. This storm has canceled more than 21,000 flights since Friday, and now investigators are trying to determine if the weather factored into a deadly crash in Maine.
We have a passenger aircraft upside down.
Haunting radio transmissions during the height of the storm Sunday night. A business jet linked to a Houston law firm crashed during takeoff from Bangor, Maine. Local police say all 6 on board died. The plane came to rest upside down and could be seen smoking after the crash.
The NTSB has notified us that they expect to have a team of investigators on site later this afternoon, early evening.
Airports from Dallas to Boston have been working around the clock, clearing out snow and ice to try to get people and planes moving again. At Washington's Reagan National Sunday, every flight was canceled. Solia Meckling has been in the terminal since Saturday.
We were just hoping to see if we could rebook as fast as possible because we were calling airlines and no one was picking up.
But now you're stuck here.
Now we're stuck here for 2 days, so.
Sad to report she's still stuck in the terminal, hoping to get on a long-delayed flight late tonight. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the FAA doesn't expect things to get back to more or less normal until maybe Wednesday. Tony?
It's a long time. Chris, thank you very much. CBS News meteorologist Rob Marciano has been tracking the storm from the start, and he joins us now with what's ahead. All right, Rob, what are you looking at?
Well, Tony, we're looking at more in the way of cold. This wasn't such a strong storm, but it was a big one with deep moisture in that cold air. And it's still, as you saw, snowy in parts of Boston. The storm itself is off the coast, but the wraparound moisture continues to dump that snow. And some of these snow totals are pretty remarkable. We'll start you off with the top 5, the big cities across the Northeast, from Boston to D.C. First time in 10 years, they've all seen over 6 inches of snow in Boston with a clear winter, likely to see 20 by the time this is done. Look at Napanock. They're in the Catskills, 30 inches. Dayton, that's a 24-hour record. Indy, Oklahoma City, that's the most you've seen in 10 years. All right, now we're into the cold. Nicole mentioned this, and it's all the way down to the deep south. This is dangerous stuff. We've got cold weather advisories down to the Gulf Coast, 20 to 32 degrees there, and well below zero elsewhere. And more rounds of cold are coming down here, and wind chills will be dangerous over the weekend. And, Tony, that sets the stage for potentially another snow event here on the East Coast this weekend. We'll talk more about that in the coming days. Tony?
All right, Rob, thank you very much. To Minnesota now, where on Saturday, for the second time in less than a month, an American citizen was shot to death by a federal immigration agent. And the breaking news tonight, CBS News has learned the commander of the federal immigration crackdown there in Minneapolis, Greg Bovino, will be relieved of his duties as President Trump announces that border czar Tom Homan will be coming in amid a change in rhetoric as well from the White House. Let's get to Chief Correspondent Matt Gutman, who's on the ground in Minneapolis for us. Matt, good evening.
Tony, good evening. Greg Bovino has been the very public face of immigration operations across the country, especially visible here in Minneapolis, even in confrontations with protesters. We're told he'll be sent back to his base in El Centro, California. That, as President Trump said, he spoke with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz about a very good conversation, but diffusing tensions here.
Greg Bovino, for weeks the public face of federal immigration operations here, has been reassigned from Minneapolis, along with some Customs and Border Protection agents here. That surprise move and the president's conversation with Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz today follow tense scenes overnight. It all comes a day after that deadly shooting of 37-year-old Alex Preddy. Multiple videos posted on social media captured various angles of the confrontation that led to Preddy's death Saturday morning. CBS News has slowed down portions of that footage for this analysis. Around 9 a.m., about 2 minutes before the shooting, Alex Preddy is seen arguing with agents. Preddy was acting as an observer, documenting ICE operations in the city, like thousands of others here in Minneapolis. Preddy, seen wearing that ball cap, holding a cell phone, is pushed back. A minute later, he's standing in the street, waving a car through. An agent approaches another apparent observer, then shoves her toward the sidewalk. Another agent pushes Preddy, then a second woman walks over. The agent pushes her to the ground and sprays Preddy with a chemical irritant. Preddy and the first woman try to help the woman who was knocked down. At least 7 agents join and try to take Preddy down to detain him. At this moment, an agent in a gray coat appears to remove Preddy's gun from his waistband and runs away from the scrum. A second later, with Preddy's gun now in the hands of that agent, the shooting starts. The agents fire as they pull back from their target. Preddy was an intensive care nurse at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in the city. We spoke with Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara.
Is there a concern that a genie has been let out of a bottle and that it'll be very hard to put it back in terms of mass protests across the city and the possibility of additional violence?
That's been my fear the entire time. I'm just concerned that the pressure is just going to keep building and building and building. And at some point, it's just going to be too much. People are losing faith that the federal government can be capable of enforcing federal law and doing it professionally and without widespread constitutional violations. They're creating a culture in these agencies That's not good. And it's going to take years to undo.
Now, we've told that the agents involved in the shooting here are still on duty, but have been reassigned elsewhere, quote, for their own protection. That, as officials here say, they don't know whether these latest moves are enough to change the dynamic here on the ground, Tony.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. In addition to speaking to Governor Walz today, President Trump also spoke with Mayor Jacob Fry. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House.
President Trump's calls with Minnesota's governor and the Minneapolis mayor came as the White House today sought to quell bipartisan outrage over the weekend shooting. Administration officials in the hours after the shooting had accused Alex Preddy of terrorism and attempted murder before any investigation had begun.
This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism.
Trump aide Stephen Miller called Preddy a would-be assassin. The White House today distanced the president from Miller's remarks.
I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Preddy in that way. However, I have heard the president say he wants to let the facts in the investigation lead itself.
One U.S. official told CBS News that making claims before any facts were established was a terrible miscalculation. Congressional Republicans have vowed to hold investigative hearings into the shooting, and Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz had this message for the White House.
Escalating the rhetoric doesn't help, and it actually loses credibility. And so I would encourage the administration to be more measured.
Senate Democrats are now also vowing to oppose $10 billion in new funding for immigration and customs enforcement as a result of the shooting.
If there are reforms, if they start to obey the law, if they stop harassing citizens, then that's a department that we can fund.
Congressional Democrats are talking about a partial government shutdown in protest over the president's immigration policy. Friday is the deadline. One other political note, a Republican candidate for Minnesota governor today announced he's ending his bid because he can't support national Republicans and their, quote, retribution on the citizens of Minnesota. Tony?
Ed, thank you very much. Also, one final note about this past weekend and what's been unfolding in Minnesota. Federal law enforcement officers shot 2 American citizens dead on the streets of an American city. And as is so often the case with deaths, these deaths were captured on camera from multiple angles. Awful videos that no one wants to see, but we saw them. And what we saw did not seem to match what the government said to us. At first, the Trump administration described Alex Preddy as a domestic terrorist. Kristi Noem said Preddy was brandishing his gun and attacked law enforcement. Gregory Bovino said Preddy was out to massacre law enforcement. But something seemed to break in the past 24 hours to give. Late Sunday, President Trump declined to say whether the ICE officer who shot Preddy had acted appropriately. Instead, the White House is now promising an investigation of the facts and a new face of the operation, border czar Tom Homan, who the president says will report directly to him. In other news and overseas tonight, an American aircraft carrier and 3 destroyers have arrived in the Middle East, a show of force after President Trump warned Iran to stop its deadly assault on anti-government protesters. The internet in Iran is still largely down, but Elizabeth Palmer reports that when it does connect, you can see the results of the regime's brutality.
Witness accounts and videos tell a grim story that is consistent right across Iran. The regime's men opened fire on unarmed crowds. In Tehran, you can hear the gunfire echoing as protesters gather. And it continues even as people are hit and rushed away. 500 miles to the east in the city of Mashhad, the same carnage. And this is the morgue in Khorramabad, far to the west, filled with bodies, just as we saw in the capital, where refrigerator trucks had to store the overflow from the morgue. So how many people were killed? The regime admits just over 3,000, but international teams combing through the evidence and cross-checking with medical records believe it's far, far higher. For example, the Norwegian-based Iran Human Rights Group estimates as many as 25,000. Meanwhile, the aircraft carrier USS Lincoln has just arrived in the Indian Ocean on its way to the Middle East. The administration hasn't said it plans to attack Iran, but the regime is clearly rattled and said today the presence of American ships in the region makes them accessible targets. Tony?
Liz, thank you very much. The body of the last Israeli hostage held in Gaza finally returned home today. The remains of a 24-year-old police officer who was taken while responding to the October 7th attack was recovered from a cemetery in northern Gaza. The return now of all 251 Israeli hostages, dead and alive, clears the way for the next phase of the ceasefire agreement, which includes the reconstruction of Gaza. Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, doctors come out with their own list of recommended vaccines for children, and it conflicts with the CDC's. Wouldn't you know? What you need to know to figure it out next. The American Academy of Pediatrics released its own recommendations for childhood vaccinations today, a list that differs significantly from the reduced vaccine schedule that was released earlier this month by the CDC. So, as you might expect, there's some confusion. Here to help parents decide is Dr. Amanda Kravitz. She's a pediatrician at Weill Cornell here in New York City. Doctor, thank you very much for being here. I count myself among the confused. How does the new guidance differ from the old guidance?
Yeah, so it is a confusing time for us as pediatricians, for families for sure. A few weeks ago, the CDC came out with these new guidelines with a reduced number of recommended vaccines for children and a stratification system of vaccines that are recommended for children that are high risk, things like hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and then vaccines that are no longer recommended, like flu and COVID. The AAP differs in that they are still recommending all of the vaccines that we have been recommending for many, many years. So there are no changes to the old vaccine schedule based on what the AAP is currently recommending.
So it's not really about an old list or a new list. It's about what the CDC says versus what you all say. What's a parent supposed to do? Both acronyms sound impressive to a parent.
Absolutely, and both are impressive. It's important that you partner with your pediatrician. We are here to help you. We want to try to rid some of that confusion from families. So we want you to bring your questions to us. We as pediatricians are going to follow the AAP recommendations, but we also want to have open lines of communication with our families.
Will insurance pay for a vaccine that is on your list or the AAP list, but not the CDC?
Yes, as of now, our understanding is that all vaccines will still be covered. The way that the CDC recommended them is there is still the option to get those vaccines if you'd like them. So insurance should cover every vaccine as long as parents want them.
Dr. Kravitz, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Still ahead, scientists are excited about a new high-tech helping hand. Everyone else thinks of Thing from the Addams Family. We'll explain. Two quick tech stories now, starting with a warning from Pope Leo about the dangers of artificial intelligence. In a document released over the weekend, the leader of the Catholic Church said it can be hard to tell whether we are interacting with a person or a bot these days online, and he warned against, quote, affectionate chatbots that may become, quote, hidden architects of our emotions. And scientists have unveiled a crawling robot hand reminiscent of Thing from the Addams Family. It's capable of single-handedly, pun intended, picking up objects and even unscrewing a bottle cap, all thanks to fingers that bend both ways. It's not designed to scare people, researchers assure us, but to help them get things out of tight spaces, I guess like when the remote falls behind the couch. Up next, in the middle of a very serious winter storm, the police department that didn't take itself too seriously at all. We'll explain.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Cobenfy. Learn more at cobenfy.com.
Finally tonight, the good stuff. It was a tough weekend of weather, some serious trouble out there, but we also spotted something not so serious from the Louisville Police Department. Sometime Friday, whoever had the keys to the department's official X account began a 72-hour bender of snow-related jokes about skyrocketing bourbon sales and the nonstop calls for cars spinning out, including, with an audible sigh, this truck in a ditch. Even the department's own officers got the treatment, with videos of one wiping out on a snow tube and another officer, identified only as Officer Can't Drive for Crap, that's a quote, getting an SUV stuck in the snow. Thanks for making us look cool, bro, they said. The most popular post came overnight Sunday and read, if you crash tonight doing donuts in a parking lot, that's between you and Jesus, retired. By today, midday, there was a apology posted about the tone of the account, but the mayor of Louisville has come out and defended the anonymous poster.
They take their jobs incredibly seriously, and so nobody should be confused with the clearly and obviously humorous tone of some comments that they've been making online.
We're fans too. The account even posted our totally serious request for an interview earlier today, and that request still stands. Let us know. Meantime, to all the first responders who worked so hard over the weekend to keep us safe, thank you very much. And that's another day in America. For all of us here at CBS News, I'm Tony DeCopel in New York. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Good night.